Hello, so today we are going to be tackling the first part of my Vados costume, that is namely working on the dress. So we are having a super cold weekend this weekend, and I have a day off work because of a holiday, and so we're going to hopefully get this done over the next couple of days. So I have already pre-washed and dried the fabric, and so I have bought um, extra wide cotton because I want a full circle skirt. So we are going to start with the skirt part to make sure that we have enough fabric for that, and then we can start working on the bodice. Fortunately, because I have already did a mock-up of the bodice, I know that it fits really well even with the darts, and the sleeves are exactly what I'm looking for. So let's get started. So to get started, we first need to figure out what our measurements need to be for the circle skirt. So I have just come in here to Google, typed in circle skirt calculator to make it a whole lot easier. So this first Mood Fabrics one popped up. So let's see what that is all about. Okay, so here we have, if you prefer your unit of measure in inches or centimeters, I'm in the US, so I prefer inches. Choose your desired length, mini, midi, or maxi. I'm going to select maxi, even though what I want is actually in between these two because I want there to be enough for hemming. So we're going to choose maxi because I want it about 36 inches, so that way it will be about 35. I am taller than 5'7", so therefore I need that. So now we need to decide how much fullness that we want. So let's see what a full circle skirt is. Now the waist measurement for the bodice is, I believe, 42 inches. So now we need to calculate yardage. And so from here, then we see we need 2.58 yards of the 90-inch width. I actually have 108, so we are good to go there. And our waist radius for that is 6.37. So this shows you how you do the double fold. You fold it in half, and then you fold it in half again to get this shape. And so let's go ahead and start working on this. So here I am at the top corner fold of my fabric. And so right now we're going to work on the waist measurement. So we know that it needs to be about 6.4 away from that front corner. So I have my handy dandy little acrylic ruler here. And so I'm going to start by making a little notch with my white fabric pencil. And I'm just going to make sure that the corner of my ruler is directly in the corner, and just take it at a diagonal angle so that way we can get a nice clean measurement. With this part, especially when you're matching it up to a bodice, it's very important that you get an accurate measurement because otherwise it will throw the whole thing off. Now I'm just taking my pencil and I'm connecting the dots on the line to get a nice rounded shape for the waist. And so you can make it darker if you want. It wasn't really easy to see on the camera, so I just made it a little bit darker. So now we can move on to the length of this skirt. When you are measuring the length of the skirt, it's important to put the top of the measuring piece right against that line to get the most accurate measurement. And so I want it to be about 36 inches.
as I mentioned before, so that way I will have more than enough to hem the bottom. So in a similar way of how we did the top piece, you're just going to measure it like that. Make sure that if you have a flat-ended ruler, that it's relatively flat against the waist line that you made to begin with. And here is a better view as you get further over. You want to make sure that the fabric is relatively smooth. You don't want too many wrinkles in there. And so this is why I chose the 108, because I am 5'8.5", 5'9". And so I wanted to make sure that I was going to get the length without having to cut several pieces. For the skirt, I did end up, or for the whole dress rather, I did end up buying 4 yards of this, and I had plenty left over that I can use for other projects. So I was very happy about that. And just like with the top piece, I am now connecting the dots with as dark of line as I can. So that way I have a clear indication of where I need to cut for the bottom hem. It's hard moving this much fabric. My table is not very large, so it does make it a little challenging, but it's worth it for the end result. So now let's grab our scissors and let's do some cutting. So we are going to start here with our waistband, and we're just going to follow the line as best as we can with our scissors. If you have made the line a little too short, or if your waistband is a little too small, you can adjust that later. And when you're done with the waistband, you can then start on the bottom hem of the skirt. Be sure to take your time as you cut this hem layer, because this is where it will be very obvious with the end result if you cut it kind of wonky. And so you just want to take your time. There is no rush. For me, one of the most satisfying things is being able to see it when it's all done. So now we have finished the bottom part of the skirt, so we can remove our excess fabric, and now we can look to see how it falls. So here we have, it looks like it's going to be a lot of ruffles. It's going to look super cute. So hang this by the waistband in your closet to let the fabric stretch and release a little bit. So now that we have that big amount of fabric cut out, now we can cut out the rest of the pieces that we're going to need except for the collar. So here is the back bodice piece. This particular pattern does not include a seam allowance, which I didn't realize when I bought it, nor does it have instructions. So I guess it's a good thing that I have dealt with this type of bodice before. But as you can see, I'm just using some of the extra pieces that were on the side of the skirt to cut it out, so that way there is less fabric waste. Because even though we are making this with new fabric, we want it to be as friendly to the earth as we can. This particular pattern also has lots of darts, which is kind of annoying. I am not good at darts. I am the queen of princess seams, and there's a reason for that, but that's okay. We are working this out as we go. So now that we have finished cutting out the pieces for the back bodice, we are going to grab our fabric pencil again, and we are going to make some marks on there for the darts. And you can either snip where the triangle comes together and where the center point is for the darts, or you can use a pencil. Just make sure that if you use a pencil that you transfer the markings onto both pieces. After we get that cut out, we move on to the front bodice next, which needs to be on a fold. So I'm trying to find the next section that is wide enough to do that. And once you get a section that is big enough, then just like before, we are going to cut the pieces out, giving us a generous seam allowance for fit later, cutting a little triangle so that we know where the darts go. And then we are going to transfer those markings before we start working on the sleeves. So now it is time for the sleeves. And so this style of sleeve is called the Juliet sleeve. This gives us some nice volume at the top, but after that, from a little bit above the elbow to the wrist, it is significantly tighter. And so we're going to start by cutting out this first piece that connects to the shoulder. And like normal, you want to make sure that you do the notches for which part of the sleeve is for the front and which part is for the back, and then that center seam on top. So now here we are with the bottom part of the sleeve. It does have a dart where your elbow goes, so you want to keep an eye out for that. But relatively, this is a pretty simple um, sleeve to do. I had never done a sleeve like this before, so I thought it was going to be a lot more complicated than it turned out to be. And but it looks really nice, and I can't say that it took me any longer to do this one than some of the sleeves I've done in the past. Now it's finally time for sewing, so let's go ahead and fill that bobbin. And when that's done, we can put it where it belongs, and let's get started with sewing. So the first thing that we are going to sew is the darts. So there are a ton of darts on these two particular patterns. For the bodice, there is 4 in the front and then 2 on each of the back pieces. And then for the Juliet sleeve, there is 1 on the bottom part of the sleeve where the elbow goes. So we're just going to take some time and sew all of those darts now and get them out of the way. And let me just say again how much I really hate darts, but we got through it. Once all of the darts are sewn and ironed, we are going to start with the shoulder seams. So you want to put them right sides together and sew them with a back and forth stitch at the beginning and the end to keep them secure. So let's go ahead and do that. So now I'm just going to set that bodice piece aside and start working on the sleeves. So you want to match the dart on the bottom sleeve. Make sure it's on the same side as the double notch for the top of the sleeve. Then you're going to put right sides together, and I'm just going to stitch along that seam there. It is a curve, so it does have a little bit of craziness when you sew it, but it's nothing too difficult with this particular sleeve. Of course, make sure that you have the right side up. And so, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and stitch these two. So now we need to work on gathering our sleeve. So I extended the length of my straight stitch, and I'm going to start basting between the notch for the front of the sleeve and the notch in the back of the sleeve. And I'm actually going to do 2 rows of this to give it a little bit of added structure. The first one I am doing about just less than half an inch. And then for the second row, I'm just doing that 1/8 of an inch away from the first stitching. And naturally, you want to do this on both sleeves. And it's important for me to note that I did not close the sleeves before doing this, nor did I close the side seams on the bodice. And you'll see why I find that it's so much easier to do it this way.
Okay, so my method is I do not sew the side seams until after I add the sleeve. So here I am, just making sure it's going the right way. I want to make sure that my double goes to the back and the single cut goes to the front. I'm going to start by flipping this over this way. And I'm looking for that center seam, center shoulder seam cut. I'm going to start by attaching that there. Now I am going to take these two threads, which is the threads from the bobbin, and I'm going to hand ruffle them. And our main goal is we want to get these notches to line up with those notches. So you can put those together and then take the front part of the sleeve. You want add a clip and add a clip here. So that way it won't move when you're sewing. Oops. So I'm going to continue to adjust my gather stitches, and it looks like I do need to gather just a smidge more because this should lay flat against the other area. Oops. And add a clip. And then I like to start then from the other side.
So you'll want to do this for both sleeves. And after you get the notches on the sleeve itself and on the bodice lined up, then you'll just want to make sure that the gathers that you're putting in are even. Because if not, it will be very obvious from the outside. This is my method. I do know that a lot of people like to sew the side seam closed and sew the sleeve itself closed and then try to attach it. To me, that's a little bit of messing that I don't particularly want to put up with. So for me, it's easier to do this and then you can sew the side seam together at once. It's also easier if you need to adjust the side seams if you lose weight or whatever. So this is just my method.
Okay. And now that you have everything all clipped, now you're going to sew this. I added a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so that is where I'm going to sew it.
So now I'm going to start sewing the two pieces together. I like to put the ruffles on the top and the flat piece on the bottom. That way my fabric can't get caught under the feed dogs and it's much easier. Now I do have this video sped up a bit, but I am actually sewing at a slower pace and I'm stopping often to fix the fabric, make sure it's lined up, and if I need to, just doing a final adjust on those gathers so that way it's a little bit more even. So this is such a noticeable step that you want to be sure to take your time because it will take a whole lot more time if you do it wrong the first time have to take it out and then sew it again. So it's worth it just to go slow the first time. And this is something that I have learned from doing a variety of puffy sleeves like this, or just gathers in general, because when I first started doing them, I was very much oh, well, let's hurry up and get this done. I'm so excited. And that didn't work out for me very often. So now I know to go a little bit slower and adjust as needed. But you'll want to do this with both of your shoulder seams. So now I'm going to set the bodice on the table and flip it wrong side out. And I'm going to line up the side seams and the sleeve. So the first thing you will want to line up is there in the armpit and then on the sleeve. And now you're going to take and sew that together. You can use clips if you want. That's what I'm doing. But I'm starting at the end of the sleeve and working all the way down to the bottom part of the bodice. And you'll want to do this with both sides. And then after I'm done with this, I am going to go ahead and attach the skirt. I did that off camera and serge it. So that way, when we start our next step, we are going to be putting in the zipper. When that's done, now it's time to add the zipper. So I'm using an invisible zipper here, and I have already sewn some basting stitches so that way it can't move. You do need a special foot in order to do these invisible zippers, but it's like less than $10 on Amazon, um, or at least the one for my machine. But anyways, yes, I love doing zippers. I'm not really sure why everybody hates them so much, but to me, they are so much easier than trying to do buttons. But anyways, so you want to take this slow as well. And you just want to make sure that the seams that are on the inside are going the direction that you want. For example, the seam that goes from the waist to the skirt, you want to make sure that that seam is facing down. Otherwise, it will get caught and it will definitely be a huge mess. When you're all done with that, you can do a victory dance and test your zipper to make sure that it does actually zip. Of course, because I do not have this on a mannequin, it was trying to eat the fabric, but the zipper does work well, as long as it's not awkwardly on a table. So this is actually where I stopped for day one of constructing this. And so the next day that I worked on this, I finished it up. So let's move on to day two. Finish off the look, I did a double rolled hem on both the bottom hem of the dress and of the sleeves. The neckline, I serged the edges and then just did one fold over, so that way it would not be too bulky. So now let's see the end result. So here is the fruitage of our labor. It has a really nice length, even for me being tall. Got the little sleeve tucked in there, there we go. It has, when you have it on, the sleeves are super poofy, which is so nice. It has a nice rounded neckline, perfect for the additional collar that I am going to make. It fits great, has an easy zipper, and I was able to purchase the underslip for it that's 30 inches from Amazon, so everything is perfect. Let's take a look at the back. So this is the back. We can see the invisible, that the zipper is pretty close to the actual color, which makes it invisible. We got some nice flow back here as well. So in the next video, we will start tackling that center front of the tunic, and thanks for watching.